Hey guys, Zixz here with another video. This one's going to be a little different this week compared to the last few weeks where I've analyzed a lot of gameplay. Um, there was a new patch that has recently come out, and I hadn't quite had the chance before to play on the new patch and focus on it because I was more focused on the live patch rather than the PTR, and I finally got some more time to play around the new patch. And I wanted to talk about my first impressions on Arthas. So Arthas got a lot of changes this patch. This is all just changes for Arthas. To start off, his health increased by 200. His health and regeneration increased by a decent amount, and then outside of that, a lot of talents were reworked, removed, or moved just around in the talent tiers. So I wanted to take a look at that. I wanted to talk about a few of the builds that I've been seeing around. There's three that I'm going to talk about. Two are pretty common I've seen in the North American Hero League and a few times in scrims. The third one is actually a build that I kind of liked that I saw used in Korea in one of the recent games. I think it was DSA that had used it, and I'll touch on that later on. The first build I want to focus on, let me get this here. Alright, so what I've seen is that level 1 Frost Presence has been really popular. I mean, the cooldown of your W is 10 seconds. This reduces it by half when you land it. That's actually really, really strong. The ability to land a CC and then in 5 seconds land that same CC again is really, really good. His chase potential is ridiculous with that talent. On this talent tier, which you're giving up, you've got a new quest talent at level 1. It's Eternal Hunger. Using Frostborn Hungers on an enemy hero permanently increases your mana restores by 4 up to 40. That's cool and everything, and after you complete the quest, it increases the damage of your Frostborn Hungers by 25%, but it's not good enough. 25% damage on your D is nice, but I mean, 5% or 5-second cooldown, having the cooldown on your W is so big. And then you've got block. This is wrong here. This says 50%. It's actually 75%. Block is a little better now due to a more recent patch. um, there is the third build that I was talking about uses block. I think block is strong in certain situations, but I mean, this talent is amazing for a level 1 talent. Alright, so I'm going to go with a Death Coil build I've been seeing. Initially on the PTR, this build was a lot more popular because the level 16 talent was stronger. It used to be, I think, it dealt 20% more damage for each 10% of life you're missing. I'll talk about that more as we get to it. So you see it less often, but this is the first build that I've been seeing a lot. So at level 4, what people have been taking is Death Lord. It reduces the cooldown by 2 seconds on Death Coil and increases the range by 25%. Pretty solid. It's nothing super special on its own, but when it synergizes with the rest of the talents you'll see me talk about, it really shows in this build. And then you have the E talents at level 4 as well. Alright, so level 7, Rune Tap is pretty garbage at this point right now with the Death Coil build. Obviously, you're taking a Death Coil talent, Immortal Coil, and this one is really nice, and the healing of it, I'm pretty sure, is always more valuable than Rune Tap's healing. What it does is whenever you use your Death Coil on yourself, you heal, and if you use it on an enemy, you deal damage. But with this, if you deal damage to an enemy with your Death Coil, you actually still heal from it. So you no longer have to just simply waste the cooldown on a self-caster yourself to heal yourself. You can throw it at enemies, throw out some nice poke, and keep yourself sustained. It's pretty cool. At level 10, right now, it feels like after playing Arthas a couple games in scrims and playing him as much as I have been allowed to in Hero League and then from the games on the PTR, that Sorry about that. That he's looking to be more of a bruiserish type tank rather than just like a solo tank. He's felt very, very, very weak in the solo tank role, but when paired with another strong tank, he's actually felt really powerful. Granted, these are my first impressions. This could change. I could be wrong. There might be something I'm doing wrong, that my team's doing wrong, that other people are doing wrong, and maybe somebody will come out and be like, hey, man, solo tank Arthas is amazing because of this. So right now at 10, I think both ultimates are great. Army of the Dead is probably absolutely necessary if you're going to try to solo tank Arthas, but since he's not looking that he's going to be filling that role, Synergize is a fine ultimate. It's really, really strong. They increase the duration of the structure freeze, I think by 10 seconds. I may be incorrect. It could be 5 seconds. But it was increased. So it's, and the like range has always been huge, and this is where I've the first time I felt like Synergize in Arthas's kit has felt really, really, really good. But I mean, Army of the Dead is still strong. If you need self-sustain, if you need to play like you don't need heals, if you have another high impact carry like Greymane or Illidan or something that needs all of the attention and all you need to do is be able to survive on yourself, Army of the Dead is perfect, especially with this build, because this build is all about sustaining yourself as Arthas. So let's use that as an example, and I'll just take Army of the Dead. But in situations, Synergize could be good. You just want to make the snap judgment while you're in the game. It depends on their team composition, your team composition, the role you're trying to fill in for your team. Okay, so at level 13, right now, what I think is the strongest and what I see most often is the Trail of Frost. Combined with the level 1 talent, really good, but even if you didn't get the level 1 talent, this is still an incredible talent. What it does is it increases the range of your W by 30%. It's a really long range. If you go into a game right now and you check it out, you'll be shocked. I was the first time I saw the range on it. It felt so good. And then now you no longer necessarily need to actually hit the root, because on its travel time, anything between the travel path of it and the final destination will get rooted, and that's big because now you no longer actually need to hit the root. And everything else here, Frost Strike is pretty underwhelming. The only other one that I would see as possibly an option would be Frigid Winds, right here. It's Arthas's version of Imposing Presence, a talent tier earlier. The issue I see with this one is that you don't gain value from it if you're not near the enemy, and most of the times when you have Imposing Presence, you're not necessarily on top of that enemy, and it actually takes time for this ability to stack up. So I don't think it's amazing. It's nice. I could be wrong. I still need to do more testing on it, but I feel like on paper it's kind of underwhelming. So then at level 16, you have access to another Death Coil talent, and this one's really good. So what Embrace Death does in this build, Death Coil deals 10% more damage for each 10% of life you are missing. That's huge, because coupled with the level 7 talent, you heal for 100% of the damage dealt. So when you're lower health, you deal more damage with the Death Coil, and what that does is it heals you more. That's incredible, and this allows Arthas to really, really stay in the fight and be tanky and self-sustain himself without help from the support. Yes, that's the support's job, but if you have some high impact hero that needs the cooldowns from the support, now that support's not wasting cooldowns on you because you're taking unnecessary amount of poke, and that's extremely helpful. Take it from me, for a support player. It's amazing what you can do if you just give all your cooldowns to a Greymane and you don't have to even look at your tank player. Level 20, right now, it seems like his level 20s are still a little underwhelming. They did some new things. You've got Anti-magic shell, activate to reduce damage taken from abilities by 100% for 3 seconds, and you heal yourself for 25% of the damage prevented. That's nice. It's an interesting mechanic. It's an interesting level 20 ability, but I feel like at that point I'd rather Hardened Shield, but maybe that's the problem of Hardened Shield, that Hardened Shield is just too strong. Um, in most situations, I think Anti-Magic Shell would be the best. The other new one, Death's Advance, it passively increases your move speed by 10%, and then you activate it to increase its bonus to 30% for 3 seconds. No, you don't really necessarily need the move speed. As a level 20 talent, it's really underwhelming, especially compared to Anti-Magic Shell, where you can reduce ability damage by 100% for 3 seconds, or like Hardened Shield or Bolt or anything like that. It on paper is so underwhelming, and I've taken it maybe once, and it's felt really just useless. If you go Syndragosa, this is actually a really good upgrade. If you're in that situation where you're the Bruiser in the team composition, you have another tank, and you took Syndragosa, you can actually justify taking this. It flies twice as far, and you root enemy heroes for 2 seconds. That's huge. If you go look at the range of Syndragosa, like I said earlier, if you root everybody hit by that, that's amazing. 2 seconds is a long time to be rooted at level 20. That's great. Amazing ability. And then Legion Northrend, if you take Army of the Dead, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's the exact same thing as before. But I think just Anti-Magic Shell at that point would be better if you're taking that ultimate. Alright, so that's the first ultimate. That's a Death Coil build. Now, the other one I'm going to look at is you go away from the Death Coil, and you're focusing a little more on being a bruiser, doing more damage, not necessarily worrying about keeping yourself alive. So the same thing, level 1 Frost Presence is probably the best one, still to be determined. I mean, it's all the same reasons as it was the last build that I was talking about. At level 4, here's one of the differences. Biting Cold, Frozen Tempest damage is increased by 30%. That's amazing. That's a lot of damage as you go throughout the game on your E. And it allows you to fill that bruiser role when you're sitting on people and just being annoying. You're very, very sticky when you're in somebody's face because of your E. And with this, you do a lot of damage when you're in there. Or when people are on you, you're dealing a lot of damage. This also adds to his wave clear as well. So now level 7, when I've done this build, what I've usually taken is Icebound Fortitude. Now there's a different way to do this build that I saw in the Korean games, and I actually, when I saw it, I kind of agreed with it and I liked it. So I'll talk about that next, but for this build right now, I'm gonna go with Icebound Fortitude. I'm about like 70% on this decision. Again, these are still my first impressions. I still need to do more testing. I still need to play more. I still need to watch more games with Arthas involved in them to really make a decision. I mean, on paper, though, this ability sounds amazing. I mean, you activate it to reduce damage by 25%, sorry. And you reduce the duration of silences, stuns, slows, roots, and polymorphs by 75% for 3 seconds. And I believe it's on a 30-second cooldown and not a 60-second cooldown. It doesn't actually say here, but I'm quite sure it's a 30-second cooldown, so that's actually really, really powerful. It allows you to really be up in people's face, and if you see CC is coming at you, if you activate this ahead of time, you're going to be taking no damage. You're not going to be CC'd for long, and the enemy team just wastes their cooldowns on you, and now most likely like an ETC's in your face and he just power slid, and then now you're just going to wreak havoc on him. Now the tables are turned and you're killing him. So I think this is a really strong talent on paper. With this build, usually you're probably playing it with a second tank. You could still go either ultimate. I don't think really when it comes to taking which ultimate or deciding which ultimate you want to take, it really depends on the situation of the team compositions. So I'll take Sindragosa this time. um, Now here at level 13, still I think Trail of Frost is the strongest one, coupled with the level 1 talent Frost Presence. Same reasons as the last build. It's just like overall a really strong talent. Increases the range. Being not having to actually hit the root does help a lot. Makes it easier. And on paper, Frigid Winds seems still underwhelming. um, so at level 16, this is another different one. What I'll be going usually is Remorseless Winter. And this is what I've liked the most. The other option is to have Frostborn Hungers activate twice on your auto attacks, or on your next 2 basic attacks, sorry. That's nice, but this is a really strong talent. Enemy heroes that remain in the Frozen Tempest for 3 seconds, that's your E, are rooted for 1.75 seconds. And this can only happen once every 10 seconds. So it's a 10-second cooldown on another route. So now you're adding a second route that you don't actually have to land. It's just if somebody's in your face or you're chasing somebody, you root them with this, and then you root them with your W, and then your W is on a 5-second cooldown, and then you root them again in 5 seconds because you have the biggest range ever now because of the level 13 talent, and it just feels so good. And then finally, the level 20 talent's still all the same. It really depends on what you're taking as an ultimate. Absolute Zero and Anti-Magic Shell are both fine options. Now, before I ended this all, I did want to talk about a third build that I saw, and I mean, again, this is all first impressions and from what I've been seeing. This one was interesting because it was in the first competitive match of this new patch. I believe it was the first competitive match with this new patch. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But in this game, I'm gonna look at, and unfortunately, the level 16 and level 20 talents weren't taken, so I'm gonna have to fill it in with my own logic. But so at level 1, block was taken. I still think block is a very strong ability. I don't know, Howling Blast cooldown reduced by 5 seconds is really strong, and this was a team composition where Arterial was involved, so Arthas was not the sole tank in the composition, and he did have a Tassadar, so, and this wasn't against any crazy amount of auto attackers. It was against a Falstad, a Sonya, and a Kael'thas. Kael'thas I can still kind of see it. Falstad, yeah. Sonya, okay, yeah, definitely with Sonya. It's just, I do think block overall is generally just a strong talent. It's just Frost Presence just might be stronger. I just need to do more testing, but this is what was taken. I see why you would take block in certain situations, and I do actually like it more than Frost Presence in those situations. But I'd need to play this build more, since I literally just learned about it last night. So now, this is pretty standard. You go into Biting Cold here. You increase your E's damage by 30%. But the difference is, at level 7, Immortal Coil was taken. Now, instead of opting in for the activatable, where you reduce damage and reduce all crowd control on you by 3 seconds, you end up taking a little bit of self-sustain, which is really interesting. So instead of preventing damage, you're healing damage, and I see this was against a KT and a Falstad, and I actually really like the idea of doing this against those kind of heroes, because you're taking a lot of poke being in that front line, you're taking a lot of damage, and you don't want to have your healer use all of his cooldowns every single time on you, because you're in front, you're trying to deal damage, and you're taking more damage than you're dealing and that your team is dealing. So this actually, I like this idea, especially against like Kael'thas, Sylvanas, Falston, anything that's really pokey. Icebound Fortitude, probably better against stuns and just all-in compositions, but I really liked that the idea of going the Immortal Coil with this build and everything. Um, level 10 Army of the Dead was taken in this game, and I can see that you're going for more sustain against these poke type heroes, so I understand like you'd obviously go Army of the Dead rather than Syndragosa in that situation. I have to check the map I'm looking right now. I believe, okay, it was on BOE. Syndragosa could get value on BOE, but I think Army of the Dead is the better ultimate on that map. And then level 13, so this really caught my eye, and I still have to think about it. Frigid Winds was taken. Now, my assumption is literally the reason it was taken was because of the Sonya being in the front line, and just reducing her attack speed is always really helpful. Sonya is such a strong hero. She's so annoying. She's always in everybody's face. That's what the hero is trying to do. And so if she's trying to accomplish that, she's going to have her attack speed lowered by 40% the entire time. I don't see it getting too much value on like a Kael'thas or a Falstad or any ranged hero unless you're already on them, and at that point they're probably dying or getting there. So I can see this talent against Sonya, against Thrall. I'd have to look at against Arthas, stuff that really like benefits from sitting in your face, that sustains from sitting on somebody in melee range. But for the most part, I still think that the stronger level 13 talent is Troll Frost. But it does go to show you that all these talents are really good, and you can pick different talents for different situations. There's really just none of the talent builds are better than the other, is my opinion. At level 16, he didn't pick his level 16 talent. I believe the game was over by that time. And I mean, my guess would be if he was going for the self-sustain, that it would have been Embrace Death, because against a Falstad, against a KT, you're taking a lot of poke damage. You want to heal it up. This helps you sustain using your own cooldowns rather than using your own supports. And then I'd imagine I don't like the level 20 upgrade for Legion Northrend, and I'd imagine it would be Anti-Magic Shell. So those are the 3 builds I think that are the strongest for Arthas. Right now, as long as you look at the situation and like understand how the enemy team composition is working, you can adjust these talents in a lot of ways to really fit the enemy team compositions. But I wanted to give people a baseline of what to go off of, because I know a new patch can be confusing. There's a new hero, you don't necessarily know how to play him. I just want to help everybody out and just also give my first impressions on Arthas. I think he's a really strong hero. I think he definitely has a place in the meta. I don't think it's as a solo tank, but I could be wrong. We'll really have to see how people start using him and see where he truly stands. It's just he hasn't been out long enough with these new changes to make 100% accurate like tier position. I think he's like a tier 1 hero, but I could be wrong. He could be worse. He could be better. He could be literally the best hero and be first picked. We'll see, honestly. So thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it, guys. I'll see you guys next week with a new video. Thanks.